Oftentimes, it can feel like if you've seen one action thriller, you've seen them all. The genre often follows the same beats, with the same action set pieces, and the usual results. Night Call, a French-Belgian movie filmed and set in Brussels, has a familiar plot you've come across many times, but thanks to the writing efforts of Michiel Blanchard and Gilles Marchand, with Blanchard also in the director's chair, Night Calls stands with better efforts due to its relentless high stakes and a believable and sympathetic performance from its lead, Jonathan Feltry. Night Call does nothing new, but it does the standards the right way. Night Call, its French name is La Nuit Se Train, is set over the course of one night in Brussels, Belgium. As the film opens, the city is in the midst of a large Black Lives Matter protest over the killing of a black man by the local police. Our hero is an unrelated black man named Mehdi Feltry, an aspirational college student who works nights as a locksmith. When we meet him, he's helping a wealthy, rich white couple get into their home after they have forgotten their keys. He can barely rest before he gets another call, this time from a young woman named Claire, Natasha Krief, who claims that she has accidentally locked herself out of her apartment. Mehdi meets her at the building, but right away we can tell something is off with her. Mehdi needs money up front and her ID before he can let Claire into the apartment, but she says she can't because everything is locked inside. Mehdi is suspicious but a trusting man who wants to assume the best in people, a small detail that immediately puts us on his side. He lets Claire in and waits for her to come back out. After being in the apartment for a bit, Claire returns with a bag and says she'll be right back with the money after she goes to an ATM. However, a minute later she calls Mehdi and apologizes for lying to him before telling him to hurry out of the apartment before its true occupant arrives. It's too late though, as an angry brute of a man catches Mehdi in his apartment. A fight to the death ensues before Mehdi is captured by a crime boss named Yannick, Romain Duras, and his thugs, including Theo, Jonas Bloquet. As it turns out, Claire has stolen Yannick's money from the apartment. Our villain gives Mehdi one option: find out who Claire is and get the money back, or he won't live to see tomorrow. In an interview with Variety, writer and director Michiel Blanchard spoke about coming up with Night Call's premise while walking the streets of Brussels every day, waiting for inspiration to strike him. He was a fan of films like Collateral, After Hours, and Duel, which took place over one day, and although Night Call isn't as good as those examples, it is a love letter to his home that is striking for not coming across the usual Hollywood film, but something more intimate, because it was filmed on the streets Blanchard would so often walk. Deciding that Night Call would happen throughout one night is Blanchard's best choice. The film could have dove deeper into who Mehdi, Yannick, and a select few other characters are, giving us many more scenes of them outside the plot, but instead of questions being answered, we're dropped into the middle of the action and have to figure things out as we go along. We're not even going to get answers to the motivation of every character, but that's not needed. Do we need to know every detail behind why Mehdi is a good person, or why Yannick does what he does? We're given just enough, because it's not the backstory we're here for, but the chase.
Adi, où est l'argent?
Alright folks. Listen up. If you are enjoying the content of this channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and give the video a good old-fashioned thumbs up. Let's show the creators some love. Brussels is a beautiful city, and we get to explore its city streets quite a bit. It's a shame, actually, that we don't see more of it, as more time is spent inside or in dark alleyways. Still, maybe that's for the best, because Night Call is in a hurry and isn't concerned with lingering on every detail. At barely 90 minutes long, it gets in and gets out without ever dragging. So many action movies slow down in the second act, allowing us to catch our breath for too long, before pushing us headfirst into the climactic last moments, but not Night Call. It feels like an hour-and-a-half long third act. Staying steeped in the action is both a good thing and a hindrance. Night Call moves along so fast that you barely have time to notice the flaws hidden in its pace. Matey is in nearly every scene, and he's a smart character who fights back as best he can, without becoming another John Wick clone. Still, there are moments where he's written dumbly out of nowhere to advance the plot, or written to be in the right place at the right time against all odds for the same effect. And yeah, you're gonna get several scenes of him being chased and shot at by criminals with the advantage and the weapons, only for him to keep escaping. Night Call is a fun film, as the clock ticks in finding out who betrayed Yannick and getting his money back. What's Matey to do when he does find that person, and can Yannick be trusted to keep his word and let our hero go if Matey does what he's told? Yannick is a paint-by-numbers, underwritten villain who comes across as menacing thanks to Romain Duris' portrayal, but he's often literally sitting on the sidelines. The threat lies in his henchmen, especially Theo, a criminal who we sympathize with at times, but who also becomes a bit of the stereotypical bad guy who messes up so often that you wonder why Yannick ever hired him in the first place. Then there's the backdrop of the Black Lives Matter protest that's going on throughout the plot. If you're going in thinking it's going to be integral to the plot, Night Call doesn't focus too much on this choice. In the beginning, Matey does have the chance to call the police for help, but as he holds the ringing phone in his hand, the news on the TV shows cops in riot gear beating protesters. Matey hangs up the phone, and we can tell why. We get a scene of black protesters asking Matey why he's not joining them, along with the imagery of the one black guy being chased by a bunch of white guys, but this isn't an explicit movie about police brutality and racism. Instead, it's a standard action movie that happens to a black man because he was afraid to ask for help. Perhaps that's the point. Matey could have avoided all of this if he thought those in power would see him as the victim. Night Call does explore this topic a little deeper in an all-too-quick ending, but it's stronger by simply being a fun, high-octane action movie about a chase against time through a fascinating city. For the most part, that's enough. Pros. It gets into the action right away without becoming bogged down in setup. Jonathan Feltry's Matey feels like a real person in an impossible situation. The Brussels setting and Black Lives Matter protest backdrop keeps everything fresh. Cons. The characters have to be put in some nonsensical situations to keep the plot going. As with most action films, you have to suspend your disbelief during intense moments. It needed 10 more minutes to tell its story.
Donc, tu vas m'aider, Maddy?